Hope you guys had a great weekend. We are going to be doing lesson 7-7 today. We're going to be skipping lesson 7-6. We will get back to that one at some point later in the year. But for right now, we're going to continue on with lesson 7-7. Lesson 7-7 is kind of a review lesson. It is a review lesson of two concepts. The first concept is division. We need to remember how we divide and those strategies we know for division, and also multi-step number stories. So we're going to be doing both lessons in one. So before we begin, I wanted to start by doing a couple division problems. So on your paper, let's write 305 divided by 5. Now, when we did these division problems, it was really important to remember the number that we start with, right? Because otherwise, if I were to just, and I don't want you to write this, but if I were to just write 10, 5 times 10 is 50, and we see how much more we have to go, we still have 255 to go, and that's going to take a really long time for us to kind of build that number up. But if you're stuck and 10 is the only number you can think of, then you might as well do it, because choosing 10 is much better than just staying stuck. So if you remember, what we did is we covered up both of these numbers, and we asked ourselves, how many times does 5 go into 3? When you count by 5s, 5, that's too big. So we go to our next numbers. How many times does 5 go into 30? And that goes in exactly 6 times. So we start with 6, but we realize we weren't considering this number. So instead of 6, we'll start with 60. Okay? So 5 times 6 is 30, and we append 1 0 to make 300. And look at how great of a starting number that is. So when I subtract, I get 5. So how many times does 5 go into 5? It goes in once, so 5 times 1 is 5. And when this number here is either 0 or lower than this number, at least lower than this number, you know you're done. So when I add these up, I get 61. So 305 divided by 5 is 61. All right, why don't you try one on your own? So let's do 270. Let's just do 270 divided by 4. All right, so let's do 270 divided by 4. If you will, just pause this video for me. Try this, and then we'll go over here in a second. All right, hopefully you paused the video and had a good effort. Let's see, what number would be a good number to start with? Raise your hand if you know. Oh, sorry, we can't do that here. Just kidding. Let's see, what would be a good number to start with? Well, how many times does 4 go into 2? If I were to cover these other numbers, does 4 go into 2? No, 4 is too big. So let's look, how many times does 4 go into 27 without going over? Well, I know 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 7 is 28. That's too big. So let's go with 6 again. I wasn't considering that number, so we need to append a 0. We're going to start with 60. 4 times 6 is 24, and append 1 0 for 240. Let's see how much I have left over. That's 3, that's 30. So how many times does 4 go into 30 without going over? And the answer is 7, because 4 times 7 is 28, and you get left with 2. So my answer is 67, remainder 2. 67 with 2 left over. Some of you are like, hey, we can write that as a fraction. Absolutely. You could write this as 67 and 2 fourths, which would be a really good way to write that as well. 67 and 2 fourths. All right, so now that we have reviewed how to divide, let's look and see how this is going to help us solve these problems. So while I erase this, I need you to open your books, please, to 245. 245. All right, on 245, pause this video if you need more time, but on 245, we're going to read number 1 together. It says, Margaret and her friend have 2 summer job offers. A job babysitting is for 8 hours each week. With Margaret and her friend both working this job, they would earn $208 each week. A summer camp is for 7 hours a week, and together they would earn $210 each week. Which job pays more per hour for each girl? How much more per hour? Whoa. That is a lot of information. And if you remember, when we do number stories, I strongly suggest first we read the problem again. So reread the problem. Okay? And then secondly, let's make sure that we take it a sentence at a time. Take the problem a sentence at a time. Okay, so now when we look at this, let's look at the first one. It says Margaret and her friend have 2 summer job offers. Okay, so Margaret and her friend both. So Margaret, friend, they have 2 summer job offers. So we'll just say job 1 and job 2. They both have 2 offers. All right. A job babysitting for 8 hours each week. With Margaret and her friend both working this job, they would earn $200 each week. So let's just start with the babysitting. Let's call job 1 babysitting. Babysitting. That's job 1. So if they both work, they're going to earn a total of $208 each week. Now I don't think I'm gonna have enough room over here to show you the work, but we're gonna try. So that means that if both of them work together, they're gonna get a total of $208. They want us to see which one pays more per hour for each girl. So we don't want both of these, we just want one total. So let's start with the $208. We're gonna divide that by the 2 girls. So 208 divided by 2. I know 2 goes into 208 at least 100 times, because that's 200, with 8 left over. And I know 2 goes into 8 4 times, because that's 8. So that means that each girl would get $104 per week. They don't want to know how much it pays per week. They want to know per hour. So what that means is we're going to take that $104 per week and reread the problem, see how much or how many hours are they working per week. If you look at that problem, the second sentence says a job babysitting is for 8 hours a week. So if that's how much per week, we're going to divide it by 8. What would be a good number to start with? Those of you in extra math, you know 8 times 12 is 96. So that might be a good number to start with. 4 minus 6 you can't do, so you come over here. Oh, there's nothing either here. So we borrow from the hundreds, which makes this 10. Now we can borrow. Okay, so this becomes 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. 9 minus 9 is nothing. And nothing minus nothing is nothing. So we're left with 8. 8 goes into 8 one time. 8 times 8 is 8. And we're left with 0. So when I add these together, that is $13 per hour. I'm out of room, so I can't even add a label. But if they want to work babysitting, that means each one of them would earn $13 per hour. $13 per hour. Now I need to erase my board, but what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video and I want you to try to see if you could figure out how much each girl would earn per hour at a summer camp. Each girl per hour at a summer camp. Pause this video while I erase the board. Alright, hopefully you have paused the video and had a chance to try it. Just to refresh our memory, they earn $13 per hour babysitting. Okay, so we'll just call it babysitting. We need to figure out how much they earn per hour at the summer camp. All right, so they earn $210 together at the summer camp. So when you put their money together, they get $210. We need to figure out how much each girl earns. So we're going to divide that by 2 because there's 2 girls. I know 2 goes into 2 once, and I'm going to append 2 zeros and start with 100. Remember, you've already done this video, or this problem. You should have already tried this problem. So if you haven't, pause the video and try the problem. So 2 times 100 is 200, which leaves you with 10. 2 times what is 10? And the answer to that is 5. And so they would each make $105 per week. Now, if you notice, this is per hour and this is per week. Some of you might be tempted to figure out how much or how many hours are in a week, but that's not the question here. The question is how many hours do they work each week at a summer camp. So the summer camp job is for 7 hours. So we're taking this $105 per week and dividing it by 7. I would probably start with 10 here. If you know your 12s, you could start with 12. Let's just start with 10 and see what we get. That's 70. So 5 minus nothing is 5. 10, well, 0 minus 7 you can't do, so this becomes the 0. This becomes 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. So 7 goes into 35 5 times, and I know I'm done. So that means that the summer camp job would earn $15 per hour. So if you look at your book, it says the blank job pays more per hour. Which job pays more per hour? It's the summer camp. So we'd fill that in. The summer camp job pays more per hour. And it pays blank more per hour. Well, we can see that if we take the 15 minus the 13, that would give us 2. It pays $2 more per hour. Now the last part, the equation with the letter for the unknown. And this is going to be a doozy. So I'm going to do this first one for you. I'm going to talk you through it, okay? All right. Let's start with which job paid more, and that was the summer camp. So we're going to start with the summer camp. What did we do first? You got to look back at your notes. We took the 210 and we divided it by how many girls there were, and that was 2. Once we got that answer, which was 105, what did we do with that? We divided it by how many hours they worked, which was 7. So this was the summer camp. What did we do to find the babysitting amount? Well, it's the same process. We did 208, just like in class I make mistakes. So 208 divided by 2, and then what did we do with this answer? We divided it by the 8 hours they worked. Now, if this was summer camp and this was babysitting, and the question was how much more per hour, we subtracted these two totals. Look at that. That looks really confusing, but that's when you break it down, you can do each step. You can do this step, you can do the next step, you can do those 2 steps, and then you know how to subtract. So this is, when you break it down, each step is not difficult. Now, I'm not done yet, because it says equation with a letter for the unknown. So equals, I'm going to write J for jobs. But any letter you could use as long as it's a lowercase. Notice, though, it did not say equations, it said equation, just one. All right, do me a favor, let's pause the video, and I want you to go ahead and try number 2 on your own. All right, on number 2, we are. You've tried this, so I'm just going to go over it quickly so you can get started on your work. Anna wants to put 72 cards in an album. A square album fits 4 cards per page, and a rectangular album fits 5 cards per page. How many more pages will she need to fit all the cards if she uses the square rather than the rectangular album? So let's start with the square. 72 cards divided by 4. I'll start with 10 because that's 40. Leaves me with 32. 4 times 8 is 32. So that's 0. So that means I would need 18 pages for the square. Now let's look at the rectangle. It's 72 divided by 5. Uh-oh. I know this isn't going to work out evenly because 5, my multiples of 5 do not end in 2. So let's see what we're going to do here. 5 times 10 is 50. So when I subtract, I get 22. 5 goes into 22 4 times, which is 20. And I have 2 left over. So if I write this out, that's 14 remainder 2. I realize, wait a second, I have 14 pages with 2 cards left over. So what do I do with those 2 cards? I'm going to get 1 more rectangular page to get 15 pages. And that's for the rectangle. Alright, so the question says the square album takes blank more pages than the rectangular album. Well, here's the square, here's the rectangle. So how many more pages do you need if you use the square than the rectangle? Many of you see that already, but let's just show it. 18 minus 15 is 3. 3 more pages. Alright, do me a favor, guys, go ahead and go on to the IXL. That's listed on your e-learning instructions. And please, if you have any questions, call, email. I will be available from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. So please try to work within that time frame. Thank you and good luck.